Chapter 1846 Gap. Xiao Honglian hid herself dozens of meters below the water. Only at this depth could she be completely isolated from the scorching hot air in the outside world. After Zhang Yi released the fire, he took out an energy bar from the alien space and then waited in the air with an expressionless face for the fire to spread. Xiao Honglian, what are you going to do? Let's get out here as soon as possible so I can finish this faster. Oh, that's not right. You are a very stubborn woman, and you would rather die than surrender. But if I want to end this battle, I must kill you. The chances of defeating the strong with the weak are very slim. You can only have a chance if you take advantage of the other party's arrogance and laxity. But unfortunately, I won't give you any chance. Zhang Yi sat and waited for Xiao Honglian to appear. Xiao Hong's combat experience was not as good as his, and the key was that her weapons and equipment were also far inferior to his. If you want to win, you can only use unexpected tactics. Therefore, Zhang Yi didn't need to do anything and just wait patiently. The huge primitive jungle was burning, black smoke rose into the sky, and the fire brought a warm feeling. Zhang Yi thought about it and confirmed the ambient temperature. At this time, he was at an altitude of 1,000 meters, and due to the influence of the flames from the other side, he could feel the temperature was more than 20 degrees. So Zhang Yi temporarily turned off the constant temperature system of the combat suit. After a long absence, he felt the warmth of nature. The hot smoke drifted away with the wind. He smelled the odor of burning wood and heard the crackling sound of wood exploding in his ears. Everything is so familiar, making people even miss the past. A fire, no one knows how long it will burn. Zhang Yi was a little unclear whether the world before his eyes was real or fake. But everything he felt, saw, smelled, and felt was exactly the same as in the real world. He couldn't help but marvel at the strength of the god-level civilization again. This wait lasted for a whole day. When Xiao Honglian crawled out of the dry soil, there was deep despair in her eyes. Do you have to be so cautious even when fighting me? Xiao Honglian even said with a bit of grievance, even if you just give me a little chance, it would be fine. Do you really need to be so steady? Zhang Yi's voice echoed in the sky. You can easily win the battle. Why do you have to waste your energy? He looked down at the armor on his body and the magic chain in his hand and sighed slightly. Given your current state, even if I let the intelligent system fight on its own, you may not be able to win. Finally, a bullet shot out from Zhang Yi's gun and killed Xiao Honglian. Xiao Honglian turned into a stream of light and disappeared in this world. The next moment she was resurrected in the other world. Here, Uncle Yu and others are waiting for the follow-up. The light gate has been closed, preventing anyone else from entering it again. Xiao Honglian sighed and looked at her right hand. The feeling of extraordinary power in his hands just now has also disappeared. She couldn't help but smile bitterly. The power is not mine after all. Even if I get it temporarily, I can't control it skillfully. From the beginning, I had no chance of winning. On another battlefield, when Yang Xinxin opened her eyes, she was surrounded by a dark scene. There are tall buildings on both sides, built with unknown materials. They look metallic and don't look like reinforced concrete. There is a bright moon hanging high in the sky. Yang Xinxin raised her head and looked at the moon in the sky, her eyes becoming serious. She said to the intelligent system of her combat suit in a cold voice, "Analyze the parameters of the moon in the sky." The intelligent system quickly zoomed in on the moon in the sky for analysis. Soon, Yang Xinxin got the analysis results. This moon is the one we usually see, so the environment we are in is definitely on the planet. Yang Xinxin glanced around and said calmly, "It's not a planet from our time. This should be the projection space of a god-level civilization, simulating the images of their time. Huge buildings, humans seem insignificant in front of them. Get ready for battle." After Yang Xinxin finished speaking, she pressed her right hand on her chest. A set of pitch-black armor immediately wrapped her entire body completely. This is the skeleton armor that Lu Ran made for her. Although Yang Xinxin rarely appeared on the front battlefield on weekdays, Zhang Yi prepared all the weapons for her based on the principle of being prepared. Unexpectedly, this time, It was her turn to face the enemy alone, and the equipment came in handy. Although it was Yang Xinxin's first time fighting independently, she was not panicked at all, but calmly analyzed the situation in front of her. Her best ability is to control matter, but it is not easy for her to successfully hit the target with the arrows of Fallen Puppet. Fortunately, she had the skeleton armor, so she didn't have to be so embarrassed in close combat. I need to first confirm who my opponent is, as well as his position and ability. Then I can think of a way to deal with him. Their battlefield is a super city from a distant era, and it is not easy to find the enemy in such an environment. But soon, Yang Xinxin heard a deafening sound in her ears. She raised her head, and her dark eyes captured a thrilling scene. One after another, huge and tall buildings were actually pulled up from the ground, like a toy held high in the air by an invisible giant. Boom. Boom. Tall buildings were flying in the air one after another ahead, and the next moment, they smashed towards the direction where Yang Xinxin was. There are only two possibilities to achieve this. First, those with the ability in the field of telekinesis. But even for a person with the ability of none, it is very difficult to manipulate so many tall buildings at the same time. The second possibility is that the other party can manipulate the materials of these high-rise buildings. Yang Xinxin made an immediate judgment based on the scene in front of her. Columbia, Supernova, Brian, or Magneto. Only they have the ability to manipulate more than a dozen tall buildings like toys so easily. The skyscrapers in this world are much taller than humans, and buildings hundreds of meters high can be seen everywhere. In order to quickly find Yang Xinxin's location, the other party adopted this simple and crude method. Looking at the densely packed buildings around him, Yang Xinxin frowned slightly. No matter who the opponent was, his ability would give him a great advantage on this battlefield. Yang Xinxin lowered her head and took a look at the armor on her body. Without hesitation, she activated the power of her exoskeleton armor and quickly fled into the distance. Not long after she left, a tall building crashed directly into the place where she had just been, making a deafening explosion. Boom! The powerful collision caused a terrifying flame to erupt, lighting up the night sky. Yang Xinxin discovered that the opponent's attack method was indiscriminately directed in all directions. What he chose to do was to clear the field and expose the other party. Yang Xinxin's enemy, as she expected, was Columbia's Magneto Elsa Goodman. She and Yang Xinxin were on the battlefield at the same time. Unsure of who the enemy was, she chose the battle method of clearing the field without any hesitation. Because in the city, and in a city made of a large amount of special metals, almost all materials can become her weapons. Therefore, she had to clear all visual obstacles in the shortest possible time. As long as we launch an indiscriminate attack on the entire city, the enemy will definitely show up. Moreover, the ruined city is more conducive to the use of her abilities. You are so unlucky. I have the home advantage here. Then you are doomed. Elsa revealed a crazy smile on her face, with her hands raised high. In all directions, those metal buildings rose up one after another. The ruins above the ground and the steel in the building debris also floated into the air. The huge building was thrown into the distance, and the broken metal formed a huge circle around her to prevent sudden attacks from the enemy. Faced with this kind of attack, Yang Xinxin chose to retreat again and again. A few minutes later, she reached the edge of the city. Here, she felt an invisible barrier blocking her way. Sure enough, this battlefield has boundaries. Yang Xinxin came to this conclusion. She stared and began to simulate in her mind. Judging from this situation, the scope of the entire battlefield will not exceed 1,000 kilometers in length. Even with the power of an Epsilon-class alien, it would take quite a long time to completely clear the entire battlefield. It is impossible to escape, and the battle can only end when at least one of both sides is dead. Yang Xinxin understood that if she wanted to win, there was only one way. That was if the arrows of Fallen Puppet could hit the opponent. Boom! In the air, a giant building nearly a kilometer high was thrown high up and then thrown towards the direction where Yang Xinxin was. I found you! A crazy smile appeared on Elsa's lips. With the continuous destruction, Yang Xinxin's whereabouts began to be exposed. In a city with flames burning everywhere, a swiftly running giant creature could hardly conceal its movements. Elsa was standing on a huge metal plate, with huge circles of metal fragments like a storm surrounding her body, and she was rushing towards Yang Xinxin at a very fast speed. She opened her right leg towards Yang Xinxin, and metal fragments shot towards her like a rainstorm. Yang Xinxin's eyes focused, facing the huge building like a mountain, then looking at Elsa, who was attacking her, and decisively used her ability. The huge fallen puppet was now behind Yang Xinxin. It was a dilapidated puppet controlled by puppet strings. Its hands looked clumsy, but it actually opened the huge longbow extremely quickly. A black arrow appeared on it. Seeing this, Elsa's eyes became serious, and a large amount of metal fragments wrapped around her body. Although I'm not sure of your specific ability, as long as it can't hit me, it won't be effective, right? You only have one arrow, but my weapons are endless. This city made of metal is my home turf. I want to see how you can defeat me. Yang Xinxin indeed had only one arrow, but the metal fragments attacking her were endless. Not to mention the huge mountain-like building that was crashing down towards her from the sky. So she raised the angle of her arrow and shot into the air. This arrow accurately hit the huge tall building. Trojan horse implantation can control all existence in the material world, not only living things, but even non-living things. This ability cannot stop the huge building from falling, but it can cause its structure to collapse directly in midair. Boom. Boom. The tall building collapsed in midair, and a large amount of building debris crashed down, just blocking the path of Elsa's attack. The first attack she launched was easily resolved by Yang Xinxin. Elsa narrowed her eyes and said, "It can control objects, but it seems that only objects hit by arrows can be controlled. There is a way." She waved her hands in the air, and a large amount of metal garbage formed a storm that wrapped around her body, leaving no gaps. "I wonder how you can use your abilities like this." And she stared at Yang Xinxin, who was running away. Restricted by the city boundaries, she couldn't go far away and could only run around the border. Elsa stared at the exoskeleton armor on her body, a cruel smile on her lips. "You're done." She stepped on the metal plate to quickly close the distance between herself and Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin turned around and looked at Elsa, who was approaching. The arrows of the fallen puppet changed, and the black arrows turned into red arrows. Arrow of Lust. Whoosh. The arrow of lust breaks through the air and shoots towards Elsa. The huge metal storm surrounding Elsa couldn't stop her at all. The red arrow pierced through the metal storm and shot towards Elsa's body. Elsa was shocked when she saw this scene. Can a red arrow ignore material obstacles? Her body twisted rapidly in the air, and the red arrow flew past her side. Fortunately, it wasn't that fast. I was able to dodge it. Elsa breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, the distance between her and Yang Xinxin was enough for her to activate her ability. Elsa raised her hand towards Yang Xinxin in the distance. Magnetic control. Yang Xinxin, who was running away, suddenly stopped in midair. The exoskeleton armor she was wearing was completely under Elsa's control, and her entire body was lifted into the air, forming a standard big shape. "I'll tear you into pieces." The smile on Elsa's lips was extremely cruel. She gently turned her palms and heard the sound of metal breaking. She was going to tear Yang Xinxin and her exoskeleton armor into pieces. However, at this moment, the sound of breaking air suddenly came from all directions, like thousands of arrows attacking her body.